How's it going, everybody? The Joker's back, and it's time for another video, and I want to go back to Gadget Gabbles because I actually had an idea that I thought was pretty interesting. Now, this idea is actually more the fact that it's substitute item versus quick recovery. Now, this seems like a completely unnecessary debate because substitute item and quick recovery serve two different purposes, and not only that, they're both defensive gadgets that cost quite a lot, but I thought these two would actually be interesting to talk about because they both serve different purposes that you may want to actually weigh into consideration before you choose either one of them. Now, this video, as a disclaimer, is only targeting players that are actually, not at the top level of play. If you're at the highest levels of play, this doesn't matter to you, this doesn't pertain to you. But if you were someone that's interested in learning about both substitute item and quick recovery and also want to know the pros and cons of both and what I think on which one is better and when, this is the video for you. So let's get right into this. Before we talk about either of these when it comes to the pros and cons, let's talk about the gadgets on their own. So substitute item is a 2-slot gadget that allows you to spend one item. You don't have to press a button, nothing. When you get hit by a red or green glove or a slicer, it doesn't have to be targeted. Your item actually in your frontmost slot, your first slot, will be substituted out and used to basically block the item that's going to hit you. You'll have this puff of smoke that actually goes over you, and again, it only works on red and green gloves that are targeted or untargeted and slicers. So keep that in mind. This allows you to take no damage and allows you to keep driving while also retaining all your drift boost, your drift charge, things of that nature. It's very nice for that reason, and because it's only 2 slots, that gives you 4 more slots to work with, which makes it a lot more build lenient. Quick recovery, on the other hand, when it comes to quick recovery, if I remember correctly from the numbers, you get a 68% increase in recovery speed from all normal attacks, and from crush-based attacks, I think it's about a 99% speed increase of recovery from every attack. There are only a couple attacks that do not count towards this, such as Slime and Dark Chow. They don't pertain to this, but for every other attack in the game, and even stage hazards, quick recovery allows you to recover faster from hit stun, but you still do lose rings, speed, drift charge, drift boost, things of that nature. So, the biggest thing with quick recovery is that it's less build lenient because it costs 3 slots. Your gadget plate has 6 total slots available for it, which is half your plate. So that is something to keep in mind, very, very importantly. Now, from hearing this, one of these is a general, consistent anti-damage item in terms of being slowed down, whereas another one of these is a lot more nuanced. It's very particular to the targeted items such as green and red gloves and slicer, and you have to have an item in your inventory, but it costs less because it can only do so much. So what really separates these two? What are the pros and cons of each of these? Well, since quick recovery's been in the game for much longer, let's talk about the pros of quick recovery first. The pros of quick recovery are that it defends against hit stun and slowdown from basically every attack, just like I stated before, and Slime and Dark Chow do go through this. That is a con. On top of that, crush attacks become more bearable, and crushes, especially from monster trucks and level 3 bombs, are some of the most obnoxious damage to deal with, and it slows you down so tremendously that it's almost impossible to not get really upset about it, especially on lap 3. It is brutal. Not only that, quick recovery, when you pair it with ring game boost and slipstream bounty, while you're slipstreaming off of someone, if you get hit while you're slipstreaming, you actually can stay over the slipstream speed cap of about 170 to like 172 in that range, and it allows you to keep slipstreaming so you recover even faster and you maintain with your opponents, which is insane to think about. This was seen widely in Legend Comp Round 3, so it does have a lot of merit for that reason. On top of that, when it comes to quick recovery, unlike substitute item, where substitute item you have to literally use your item to defend against a green glove, red glove, even if it is or isn't targeted, quick recovery allows you to tank that red or green glove, recover faster, and hold on to your items. Whereas with substitute item, if you get hit by something, you are forced to use your item or your item goes away. So if you're trying to bag something like a turbo wisp, a laser, a monster truck, a drill, quick recovery allows you to bag those significantly easier, especially if people are getting unlucky and pulling gloves in bottom spots, so you get to hold your better items for important shortcuts like on Sand Road, Blizzard Valley, things of that nature, whereas you can't do the same with substitute item. But substitute item does have its own perks. Now, when we go to quick recovery's cons, remember how I stated Slime and Dark Chow don't care about quick recovery? That holds true. Not only that, quick recovery, as I stated earlier, requires 3 slots, so it is very restrictive to your builds. You basically have to lock in ring game boost, slipstream bounty to get max value with quick recovery. Otherwise, you have no speed gen, no drift gen, no nothing. You have to sacrifice quite a lot to put quick recovery on your plate, so you have to find ways to circumvent that, and you have to find ways that you can actually utilize quick recovery while having as much as possible, and usually ring game boost, slipstream bounty is your best in-slot case scenario with a power car. Now, on top of that, quick recovery, just like substitute item, are both very dependent on how often you get hit to provide high amounts of value. Substitute item is actually less about getting hit. It's more about tanking hits in a smart way, but I'll get more into that later. I will have to really explain that. But with quick recovery, if you don't get hit a lot, this has very little value, and you're basically dead slotting 3 gadget slots when you could have just used something else. On top of that, when you get hit, you still lose all your rings. So if you were supposed to lose 50 rings from a green glove, you lose 50 rings from a green glove, which if you have 100 rings, that translates to almost minus 10 flat speed. And as I've said in many videos, flat speed is important. You have to keep your flat speed high in order to maintain with people. Losing that flat speed takes a long time to recover it, especially if your only form of ring generation is Slipstream Bounty. So you want to find a way to deny all items as much as humanly possible. On top of that, when you're hit, you still lose your active drift charge, you lose your active drift boost, and you lose any active speed boost that you have from White Wisp. So this is very damaging, and it can slow you down tremendously, even more so than you would once think. If you are also hit in a bad spot with quick recovery, funny enough, quick recovery doesn't help. So like on bends such as Wonder Museum and Roulette Road Spirals, since you don't have stats that are being provided to you from something like Hyper Ring Engine or an Evolution Gadget, right, your handling is actually still so incredibly low that when you get hit, you gotta start your drift, but you'll still get sent wide initially, and then you can start coming back in so you can reconnect your line back to what it was supposed to be. So it does have some issues of you getting really messed up on bends, and it's something you have to be very cautious about. And finally, quick recovery based builds super heavily rely on slipstreaming. You have to slipstream permanently. If you're not in slipstream and you cannot get in slipstream range of people, your build is nothing burger. It can't do anything, because the whole point of quick recovery is to stay in slipstream, tank a hit, and still be slipstreaming off of someone. If you can't do that, quick recovery does nothing, and it basically is a complete dead slot and waste your whole gadget plate. Now, I'll talk more about quick recovery later. Let's get into the substitute item pros and cons, because this is a very important section to cover, because there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons, and they're very important to explain. So, just like I said earlier, substitute item is 2 slots, is more build lenient, and on top of that, it allows you to hold your bad items, so stuff that you don't want to use, or it's dangerous to use in certain situations, like a level 3 bomb that could potentially ricochet into you and explode. You can actually hold that, tank a green glove, it substitutes out that level 3 bomb for that green glove. Now again, there's a lot of situations there's a lot of item play based things, but if you have a Void Wisp, right, and you need to get to your White Wisp, if someone throws a red glove at you, you can actually have Void literally go out of your inventory and you can discard it to tank that red glove hit. You'll take 0 rings of damage, lose 0 speed, and you'll keep your drift charge and retain all your drift speed and all that stuff. On top of the fact that now your Wisp that you're wanting to get into your front slot is now in your front slot, which is something that is otherwise impossible to legitimately do. On top of that, it prevents situations where you have to straighten out on hard bends or try to block from impossible angles, where from green gloves that are ricocheting, substitute item does not care. If you get hit by the green glove and it's ricocheting in a very impossible to predict way, which a lot of time green gloves do just bounce around randomly, and they will try to smart bounce and smart steer to you, substitute item doesn't care about that. It helps to prevent those situations and helps to prevent you from getting KO'd from a smart bounce, smart steering green glove. Now, another big thing is that when it comes to green gloves, red glove slicers, it also works when they're back thrown to you. So if someone tries to back spam you, substitute item doesn't care, procs, boom. Now you don't have to deal with that. One big thing, and this is going to be a little more map specific, but if you're on tracks such as Chow Park or Market Street, where you can't get a lot of value from your Boost Wisp and Omochow outside of dodging KBBs, weights, slimes, things of that nature, if you have a Boost Wisp and an Omochow and you have substitute item, those actually become basically pseudo green gloves or pseudo hazard items that you can hold in your inventory, and you basically use those to defend yourself when you're about to get hit by a red glove or a green glove, things of that nature. So basically they become like little mini meat shields that otherwise you wouldn't be able to use, and you wouldn't be able to actually block things with. It takes their primary function and finds a new way to utilize it, which is really cool. Finally, when it comes to green glove and red glove attacks, especially point blank frame 1s, this gadget is the #1 way to completely deny frame 1 attacks. It legitimately makes it to where you cannot get frame 1, and it's very interesting for that reason, but again, you have to have an item in your inventory. If you don't have it, then you can't do that. Now, we've covered the pros, let's cover the cons. So again, substitute item only works against green gloves, red gloves, and slicers. It works against nothing else. Secondly, if you don't get hit by gloves and slicers, you are basically dead slotting this gadget. It becomes basically useless if you're not getting constantly gunned down by green, red, and slicers. It's a shame. Now, on top of that, you have to have an item to sub out. If you do not have an item in your inventory, you cannot sub it out and defend yourself on any bend, nothing. You have to have an item, which that's obvious, but that's a con to the gadget itself and a condition that you have to meet. Not only that, this does not prevent point blank bombs. Now, as I've stated already, green gloves, red gloves, slicers, those are the only things you can block. You can't block weights, you can't block slime, you can't block KBB, nothing. When it comes to the bombs, bombs are the same way. If you get hit by a bomb, you can't substitute item out for that bomb. You have to defend it on your own. So if you have a green glove and you know a bomb's about to roll into you, you have to backdrop your green glove into the bomb and try to defend yourself. But the indicator doesn't exist for a bomb, so it's very hard to do that in general, so bombs are still very obnoxious. Not only that, when it goes about taking your item, it is always the item in your front slot. So it doesn't matter how good your items are, it doesn't matter what you're bagging, nothing. If you get hit by a red or green glove, especially a back thrown green that's coming out of nowhere, you will lose your front slot item. And if it's triple wisp on a track such as Sand Road, you are going to be crap out of luck and you are going to be very upset. And I do not blame you. Quick recovery does help to prevent that. Substitute item does not in those situations. Not only that, substitute item is definitely track dependent. Surprisingly, compared to quick recovery, it's a lot more track dependent because if you're on front running tracks, this gadget actually isn't bad because the best items that most people can get to target you are reds and slicers that auto lock onto you. And if you're on a front running track such as Coral, such as I believe Chow Park counts here, you have Market Street, you have Mystic Jungle. If people are constantly only getting reds and slicers and then you're rolling for, like, say you have a bomb in your front slot but a shield in your back slot, you can use the bomb to deny a red glove, use the shield right after, and you get situations like that that allow you to have guaranteed safety, which is unbelievable, which is something that not a lot of gadgets, or any gadgets for that matter, can do. Unless you get those tracks and unless you get those situations, it's very rough. And if you use substitute item on a bagging track, you gotta hope that someone doesn't back throw a green glove and it bounces into you. Otherwise, you will get screwed. Last but not least, it specifically takes up 2 slots. If this was a 1-slot gadget, it would be insane. But the fact it's a 2-slot gadget, that means it's taking up Perfect Charge Bounty, Hyper Ring Engine, Inventory Plus, Ring Game Boost, some of the most important 2-slot gadgets in the game, which is not a good sign because remember, the best builds in the game right now are all based on having 2 2-slot gadgets and 2 1-slot gadgets. With a substitute item, you have to sub out one of those really important 2 slots, specifically Perfect Charge Bounty or Hyper Ring Engine, or if you're a Ring Game Boost player, Ring Game Boost and something else. You have to sub out some very important gadgets to actually make it work, which is something that you want to be very cautious about, and it can definitely be very detrimental, so you have to keep that in mind. Now, I've covered the pros, I've covered the cons for not only substitute item, but also quick recovery. The question is, which one's better, which one should you use, and why should you use them? So, in general, let's talk about common case scenarios. So, in very common world scenarios, you have a lot of people that are very item spammy, is the best way to put it. This means these are players that constantly throw their items as soon as they get them, or they try to hit anyone that they see. If they get hit, they will throw and hit the very next person, things of that nature. So when you're in World Match, if you can't make a breakaway from the pack, especially if there's a lot of lower ranked players that are just having fun, don't really care how they use their items perfectly, things of that nature, then you're going to get into situations where quick recovery is actually much more beneficial because quick recovery still helps you to deny a lot of that hit stun and allows you to keep chugging along with Slipstream Bounty and Ring Game Boost, which means you don't have to be sitting in this very awkward state of being slowed down constantly and not being able to catch back up or stick with the front pack, things of that nature, but you lose a ton of rings. And since you're losing a ton of rings and your gadget plate is very restrictive, you don't have stuff like Perfect Charge Bounty, which you can slam onto many other plates, or even with substitute item, you can technically slam it on with substitute item and do like Quick Charge 2, 3, Perfect Charge Bounty and sub item, and you can still find some weird fun success with it. But again, if you're in a very item heavy lobby where people are constantly throwing items left, right, and it's just constantly for lack of a better terms, a shit fest, you want to have quick recovery. It is definitely much more beneficial for you, especially if you're someone that really hates dealing with all the items getting flung around, and I do not blame you. Again, if you're really good at the game, you're at top level or even high level, obviously you're not going to use quick recovery as a substitute item, but if you're someone that isn't at that level, but you still want to play the game and have fun and just kind of tank through items, quick recovery is kind of your go-to. But if you want a gadget that's much more lenient with how you use items in a lot of ways, and allows you to have some really nice defense against people trying to frame one you with green and red gloves, and on top of that, that gives you some very unique tech that you can use with it through not using Omo Chows, not using Voids, not using Wisp to deny red gloves, green gloves, and slicers, then substitute item actually might be better for you. Not only does substitute item work better in front-running tracks when you can get a lead, because the only things that most people can pull that can target you are red gloves, potentially green gloves, and slicers because of their lock-on mechanics, but that allows you to hold stuff like Omo Chow, Void, and Wisp when they don't have their primary function that they're able to service. You can actually use those as meat shields for yourself, right? And this is a very important thing about substitute item. Now, again, you're gonna have to deal with weights, you're gonna have to deal with slime, you're gonna have to deal with KBB, but that is a unfortunate thing that both of these gadgets have to deal with, and with quick recovery, you're not gonna usually get to the front, but with substitute item, there's actually a much higher chance you can, due to the fact you have more open slots to mess around with. Does this mean it is a all-perfect gadget? No, it does not. Substitute item has a lot of drawbacks about it, and it does give up a lot of very important gadgets to be put on your plate still. If the substitute item was a 1-slot, this gadget would actually be insane. It would legitimately be a gadget to talk about much more in depth about, and talk about maybe how you could fit this in with the main meta build. But again, substitute item as a gadget, if you want to have some more technical based stuff where you can remove Omo Chows, Wisp, Voids, and have basically extra defensive capabilities while also being able to deny those pesky frame 1 red gloves or auto locked red gloves and slicers that literally when someone doesn't have line of sight of you, they can just throw them and it just works. This is the gadget for you. Now, again, you do have to keep in mind, you still have to deal with all the other items in the game. They're still going to all do max damage, max hit stun, things of that nature, so it's going to be very obnoxious. But if you're playing really good at the game and you're cycling your items correctly and putting items in the correct order when you get them, this gadget is very fun and it does have a lot of potential to be very strong. I do think if this blocked bombs as well, this gadget would be absolutely unbelievably fun because there's so many items that you can actually deny while having substitute item in your plate, and you can use substitute item as a good checkmate to a lot of these very obnoxious things like frame 1 bombs, gloves, slicers, things of that nature that you're otherwise unable to deal with. Even though quick recovery does allow you to deal with all these items and then some, quick recovery is just very build restrictive and doesn't provide you a lot of value when it comes to getting rid of void out of your inventory if you find the opportunity to get rid of it, or get rid of the wisp item, or get rid of Omochow, things of that nature. But quick recovery does allow you to bag your items much more consistently, especially if people are back throwing gloves constantly. So again, there's a big trade-off between the two. I would say personally, even with my honest opinion, substitute item is better in situations where you have higher chances to front run and you have higher chances of being in positions where people are going to be pulling red gloves, green glove slicers. Whereas quick recovery is actually better at bagging, arguably, because quick recovery doesn't have the risk of you losing an item when you're about to get hit by a green or red glove, especially if it's back thrown. Quick recovery actually allows you to deny those situations, tank the hit, and then wait till you get to the shortcut and then use your actual speed item to use the shortcut, which can actually save you a lot of positions, and then that hit is not as damaging. Again, it's a lot of nuanced things, but I think in terms of both of these, it depends on the track, but I think substitute item is better for the front running tracks, whereas quick recovery is actually better for the bagging tracks, ironically. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think substitute item is better in bagging tracks? Do you think quick recovery is better on front running tracks? What do you guys think? Because I'm actually very curious to hear your thoughts on this. But in general, I think substitute item and quick recovery are both extremely fun gadgets. I think they both have their use cases, and I think honestly, you can use them on any track and find mild to decent success. Obviously, you're not going to find the ring engine level success or the OGTT build success, but you're still going to find a lot of fun with these gadgets. So let me know what you guys think of both of these gadgets in the comment section down below. Do you think substitute item is better and why? Or do you think quick recovery is better and why? Or do you think they both serve different purposes and they're equally as valuable? What do you guys think? Anyways, without further ado, have yourselves a great one, and I'll catch you next time.